Arkadaşlar ne oluyor? Biri açıklayabilir mi?
Açığa alındık. Hepimiz.
Bana da geldi.
A contemporary fable about the dangers of speaking out amid creeping authoritarianism and artistic censorship. Yellow Letters won the top prize at the Berlin Film Festival for its chilling portrait of a Turkish couple whose lives are turned upside down. A climate of repression that feels all too familiar, expertly recreated by director Ilker Catak.
Sen harbiden tiyatroyla dünyayı kurtardın mı sanıyorsun?
Aynen öyle sanıyorum.
Yazdıklarım, oyunlarım hepsi hayattan besleniyor.
Ne oldu lan?
Abi sana haber gelmedi mi daha?
Ilker Catak, hello.
Hi.
These yellow letters that your characters receive, it means their jobs at university, a theatre, are effectively terminated and then things spiral. We understand these missives as attempts to silence them, to intimidate them. What is it about these characters' activities that made them targets for those letters?
Well, probably not being aligned with the agenda of the state and the government. Mildly criticizing, nothing that isn't covered by freedom of expression for a liberal democratic society. But you don't have to do much to be targeted these days.
Şansını yükseltmemiz adına geçmişteki bazı paylaşımlarını silmen faydalı olabilir diye düşünüyorum.
Ne gibi?
Siyasi olanları.
Was there any real life inspiration for the script?
Yeah, so first and foremost, I wanted to make a film about marriage and how hard it can be to be married. And for that, I chose to write this with my wife, Ida. And then we also thought about how, politics is dividing our societies and our families. And we were very much following the ongoing processes in Turkey. And there was the coup d'etat, and there was a petition that more than 2,000 academics and people from the arts signed, and as a result were laid off and sent into civil death, which means you're not allowed to work, you're excluded from social life, you're put on trial, but that trial never comes, or it comes at a time which is very, very late. And then you're not even sure if that trial is going to be fair or not. So that was like a moment in recent history, in Turkish recent history, that we thought could be one referential point for the story. We wanted it to be not just about that specific incident, but also about, something more universal.
And the film's a fascinating study of how the different recipients of those letters react to them. Some choose to prioritise their own financial security, their comfort, and effectively censor themselves. It's very nuanced, though, because as a viewer, we understand why they do that. But as the creator of those characters, how harshly did you judge them?
I don't judge my characters as a writer. I think it's my job not to judge them. I might have a different perspective as a person, as just me. But when I'm in the role of a writer and a director, I have to love them with all their faults and flaws, right?
Efendim arkadaşlarla konuşmadan böylesine oldu bittiye getirip onları nasıl bir duruma soktuğunuzun farkında değilsiniz galiba.
Kadriye Hanım, ben her şeyin farkındayım, emin olun. Her şey. Ancak dediğim gibi bu zarfların benimle hiçbir alakası yok.
Then there are those characters who are just instruments of the persecution, the people who say, oh, I'm just following orders. That's a phrase that's been uttered throughout history in moments of violence and oppression. How do you see their role in this dynamic?
It's a very convenient way of not confronting yourself with your conscience. It always comes down to whether you really see that person in front of you and see the dilemma, or if you're just trying to be a cold person and say, no, I'm just following orders. And I think that's, it's the banality of evil that Hannah Arendt was describing. It's just not the evil guy, but the guy that is just saying, I'm just doing my job, I'm sorry, I don't have any responsibility. But I don't believe in that. I do think that we all have responsibility and we all have to, face that conscience.
And as well as your two protagonists, Aziz and Daria, there are two cities that play major roles in this film, Ankara and Istanbul, except that they're played by or substituted by Hamburg and Berlin in Germany. That's very clear on the screen. You make it very explicit. Can you tell us about that choice?
I never wanted this film to be only about Turkey. And also, keep in mind that I live in Germany. I enjoy certain privileges of being able to live in Europe, to be traveling as I wish. And therefore, at some point, I told my co-producer, Enis Köstepen, and co-writer that, I feel like a tourist in here. What Enis said to me, he said, if you feel like a tourist in this story, then let's think about setting this in Germany. And let's think about all the people that already live in exile. Why not send the film into exile as well? Therefore, all of a sudden it became a film not just about Turkey, but also about our Western democracies. And I think it's important, as a person who lives in a Western democracy, that we don't make films and don't make, it's so easy to point the finger at someone else, but it's hard to say, no, this is also about us. And I wanted this film to be about us.
Of course, the question of freedom of expression is at the very heart of this film. When it comes to the media in Turkey, Reporters Without Borders has ranked them 159th out of 180 countries. That's for mainstream media, newspapers, broadcasters. But what about social media? Do you think that's a space for dissident voices?
I have a very ambiguous relationship with social media. I think they are at the core of many problems that we're facing nowadays. They are at the core of the decline of democracies. They are pushing right-wing populist parties so that their algorithms show their content more, and they're getting into people's brains. And I think they could be doing much, much more against not just politics, but also against such sexual harassment and such things, but they're not. They're obviously choosing not to do it. It can be a voice for dissidents, maybe, but there are other outlets too. It doesn't have to be social media. If we as a society want to do something radical and something good, not just for us, but also for our children, we should get off these platforms.
Yellow Letters won the Golden Bear at the Berlin Film Festival. You were given that top prize by jury president Wim Wenders. He'd been in the headlines just days before for his comments suggesting that artists should stay out of politics when it came to interviews, that sort of thing. However, many artists at the festival did speak out against many subjects, including the situation in Gaza. And then the German Culture Ministry responded with recommendations for the festival's director, Trisha Tuttle. What is your view on that? Should the festival be rethinking its position on politics?
First of all, what Wim said, I think people deliberately misunderstood him. What he was trying to say was that arts should be staying out of party politics. But of course, politics is in everywhere. It's like, societal politics, they are everywhere. And his films have been political in that regard. I have friends from all over the world. They don't understand the German position in regards of Israel questions. And as a German government, you cannot expect these people to take the same position as the German agenda. The German agenda is a very contradictory agenda. So that is something that Germany is dealing with right now. It's a very, very deeply rooted problem. And they are very, polarized over it. Trisha Tuttle and the festival, and I must reiterate this, is that they have been very clear that every artist and every guest is free to say whatever they like and whatever they think within this context of the law. So that must be the only code of conduct, if you want to call it like that we are abiding to. And anything else, anything other than that would be censorship. I'm very clear here.
And your film, being set in the present day, in a family, involves references and normal conversations about values, about religious beliefs, feminism, citizenship. We see the struggle of two parents trying to work out what vision of the world to present to their teenage daughter. Did this make you reassess your own position on some of these questions? Where did your reflections take you?
There are certain questions in life that I don't have answers to, and I try and understand certain things by making films about these questions, right? And for this film, it was very, like, one thing that was on my mind all the time was the performances that we put as citizens, the performances that you have to deliver if you want to get ahead in life. And every society has different performances. So my characters, they are banned from the stage. And now they have to act in society. And the society demands them to be good Muslims. It demands them to be, patriots. And, so I think that was one thing that I wanted to understand here. And the other thing is, of course, like, how much does our work have an effect on the world? How much is it really that films can change the world, art can change the world? On the one hand, sometimes I think, let's not overestimate what we're doing. Let's not take ourselves too seriously. On the other hand, I think when, regimes go after artists, they will have a reason, and they will, it is because art can change minds, and it is because it can make a difference in the world. So it's always this dilemma that I find myself in, of not knowing whether what I'm doing has any impact, and on the other hand, still doing it, hoping that it will have an impact.
Ilker Catak, thank you very much for your time.
Sure.
Hiçbir etik değerin kalmamış.
Ben direnmekten
Ya
yoruldum
sen
Aziz.
ne direndin Allah aşkına? Gittin tiyatroda 2 tane kavga ettin. Direnişçi mi oldun başımıza?
Boş hayaller peşinde koşuyorsun
Ya
Aziz.
sen koşma.